Over the past year, Belgium has seen a surge in shootings and gang violence, putting its security services on the front line of Europe's drug crisis. It has also become the epicenter of the €10 billion a year cocaine market, with over 100 criminal networks operating inside the country. And the recent escalation of violence has even sparked warnings that Belgium could be turning into a narco-state, with Belgian authorities considering deploying troops on the streets. So in this video, we'll explore Belgium's drug crisis, examine whether the country has truly become a narco-state, and look at what the government is doing to reverse this trend. Never miss an episode and always feel in the loop by subscribing and ringing the bell. Let's start with some context. Europe has long been a lucrative market for drugs from South America, particularly cocaine. In 2016, the global landscape for cocaine production changed dramatically after the Colombian government signed a peace deal with the FARC guerrillas. The agreement ended decades of conflict, but created a power vacuum, fragmenting control over cocaine production and giving rise to multiple smaller competing groups. This opened the door for European traffickers, especially powerful networks from Morocco and the Balkans, to deal directly with suppliers in Latin America. Traditionally, cocaine entered Europe through the Iberian Peninsula, but as security tightened there, traffickers looked for larger, less guarded, and more connected ports, and found them in Antwerp, a port city in northern Belgium, as well as in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. Antwerp quickly became their preferred port for three reasons. First, it sits at the mouth of the Scheldt River and connects effortlessly to the rest of Europe via road, rail, and canal. Second, Antwerp is one of the world's busiest ports, handling millions of containers a year, so the sheer volume makes it easier to hide illicit cargo among legitimate shipments. Third, unlike more automated ports, Antwerp still relies heavily on dock workers and manual inspection. This makes it vulnerable to corruption and infiltration. Many workers have been bribed or coerced into helping traffickers retrieve hidden cocaine from containers. So, all in all, Antwerp's central location, its efficient but vulnerable infrastructure, and EU-wide open borders made it ideal for distribution. Once drugs enter Antwerp, they move seamlessly into the Netherlands and can be cut and packaged before being sent across Europe to Germany, France, the UK, the Netherlands, and Nordic countries. More and more cocaine was coming into Antwerp, and by 2023, the volume of cocaine entering Belgium had skyrocketed. Authorities seized 116 tons of cocaine in Antwerp, a 5% increase on 2022, which itself was already a record-breaking year, and double the amount seized in 2018. Including seizures at the country's Zeebrugge port, the total reached 121 tons, worth over €9 billion on the street. To put that in perspective, Belgium seized 76 tons more than the entirety of the US that same year. This surge in drug trafficking has fueled a wave of spiraling violence across Belgium, as rivaling gangs compete for control of the lucrative cocaine market. Drug-related violence has become increasingly visible, particularly in Antwerp and Brussels. In Antwerp, authorities recorded 91 drug-related violent incidents in 2024, nearly 30% more than the previous year, with the port city turning into a battleground where traffickers use grenade attacks, shootings, and arson to intimidate rivals or recover lost shipments. Meanwhile, Brussels has emerged as a new flashpoint for drug-related street violence, where authorities have identified 15 drug-related crime hotspots involving more than 60 active gangs. The capital even recorded 89 shootings in 2024, leaving 9 people dead and nearly 50 injured, a dramatic rise from 2022 when only 3 fatal shootings occurred. Much of this violence has been concentrated in neighborhoods such as Anderlecht and Molenbeek. In the district of Anderlecht, just between January and mid-March 2024, there were 43 shooting incidents. Drug-related violence has even reached the highest levels of government, when a former justice minister was forced into hiding following a wave of grenade attacks. Of course, the nature of drug trafficking and transnational crime means it inevitably crosses borders. Belgium is not alone in facing a surge in gang-related violence. Countries like Sweden have also seen similar trends. However, Belgium stands out for the scale and severity of its problem. It now has the third highest homicide rate in the EU, behind only Latvia and Lithuania. This wave of violence has spilled over into other forms of crime too, including street violence, theft, and armed robbery. Now, there are several reasons why Belgium has struggled to rein in this crisis. First, widespread corruption and bribery among port workers, customs officers, police, and even prison staff have allowed criminal networks to operate with near impunity. Second, the country's judiciary and law enforcement systems are chronically underfunded, facing a shortage of investigators and police officers, which severely limits their capacity to respond to organised crime. Finally, Belgium's deeply fragmented political and institutional system further undermines effective governance. Power is spread across multiple layers of government, divided between French and Dutch-speaking regions, each with overlapping responsibilities and competing priorities. A clear example of this dysfunction is seen in Brussels, where 6 separate police zones operate within the same city, often with minimal coordination, creating ideal conditions for drug trafficking networks to flourish. What's more, political deadlock at the national level has repeatedly impeded decisive action. Following last year's elections, it took 7 months for Belgium to form a governing coalition. The eventual government, led by Flemish nationalist Bart de Wever, the former mayor of Antwerp, who has long pushed for stronger federal support and funding in the fight against drug trafficking, has pledged a zero-tolerance policy on drugs. Among his key proposal is a merger of Brussels' 6 separate police zones into a single unified force to improve coordination and tackle rising violence, a reform the government says will be implemented by 2027. Unfortunately for de Wever, despite the promised crackdown, violence has only continued to escalate. The Belgian capital has already recorded 57 shootings in 2025, 20 of them during the summer months, while in just the first 4 months of the year, police made 131 arrests in the Antwerp port area, surpassing the total number for all of last year. The surge itself is likely being exacerbated by the recent US crackdown on drug cartels, with the American president designating them as terrorist organizations, which has perhaps made trafficking to Europe a more attractive and lower-risk alternative for smugglers. Things have become so bad that a senior judge in Antwerp recently warned that Belgium is becoming a narco-state, where police and the judiciary are powerless to protect citizens. And Brussels' public prosecutor recently warned that everyone in the city is at risk. To try and retain control of the situation, Belgium has also sought the support of the head of US Homeland Security to increase the sharing of data and intelligence to combat drug trafficking. The Federal Interior Minister has also backed a proposal to deploy soldiers to the streets, a measure previously used in 2016 after the Brussels airport and metro attacks. While the plan has faced criticism from the opposition, who called it ineffective and accused ministers of trying to emulate Trump, it's clear that something dramatic has to happen to stem the tide. If you're interested in learning more about this topic, then there's plenty of other outlets reporting on it online, but what about everything you don't see? Or what about the sources you've grown to trust that are purposefully leaving out information? Thankfully, our sponsor this week, Ground News, are experts at lifting the veil on media bias. That's because Ground News is a website and app that gathers thousands of articles from across the world, expertly merging all different sides of political bias into one place, making it simple to see multiple perspectives on the same event. In addition, every single story comes with a detailed view of the bias distribution, factuality scores, and even specific ownership information. For example, if we take this story about the recent drone sightings over Belgium's military base, you can see that 32 sources are reporting on it, and it's all featured here in one place. And if we delve a bit deeper, we can see that most of this coverage is coming from the centre. While it would normally be overwhelming to sift through thousands of articles to find out how they're being reported differently by either side, Ground News offers a handy bias comparison feature where you can do this with a click of a button. For instance, if we go back to this story on the recent drone sightings in Belgium, we can learn that the left is framing the drone sightings as a grave, clearly orchestrated operation, while the centre maintains a more neutral tone, focusing on the investigation and contextualising it within a broader European context. But that's not all. For stories that have been disproportionately covered by one side of the political spectrum or the other, their aptly named blind spot feed puts all of those into one place to help you stay grounded and informed. So if you want to begin questioning the narrative instead of just consuming it, you can get started today as we're partnering with Ground News to offer you 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan. Just subscribe through the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen, and you'll be supporting an independent news platform working to make the media landscape more transparent.